Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Fast Leadership Podcast with Arno and Gordon, where we look to take the rocket science out of leadership and make it accessible to everybody.
Okay, today our focus will be on youngsters. I'd like to talk about the Padawans, the younglings, the very fresh new leaders. So I guess the topic of today is congratulations, you're in a new position, you're a leader now. What do you do next?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. I think when we get into that first leadership position, there's a lot of things that we just need to be careful of. There's a lot of mistakes that new leaders make. Sometimes they try to be too hands-on. They're not comfortable with leading, so they become more hands-on, and then that can kind of bleed a little bit into micromanagement. Or they can be too hands-off and create distance between them and the team, especially if you're promoted to lead a team that you were part of. You know, one day you're one of the guys, one of the gals, the next day you're the boss. And that can be quite difficult. And I've seen people who try to create a little bit of distance. But if you create distance, you've now disengaged. So you've got to get that balance right of giving direction, providing support, but also giving people the space to help themselves. And I remember a very good friend of mine, John, and he was at 26, he was promoted to be CEO of a Rockefeller Foundation group. So, Rockefeller, at that time, one of the richest people in the world, he now became a CEO at 26. And I said, how did you manage that, where you're now leading almost everybody in the organization is older than you? And he said, yeah, you have to accept you're not going to know more than them. So you have to leverage their capability, and you just have to work your socks off. You don't have more experience, but what you can do is work your socks off and try and outperform. So that would be my suggestion to new leaders. And there's a Gallup survey that shows 82% of times companies promote the wrong person into a leadership position.
That's an interesting number, I've met so many people who were great at their task and then got promoted.
Correct.
They changed from being a great technician to a very poor leader because it's not what they wanted to do.
Well, Lionel Messi, one of the greatest, if not the greatest footballer of all time, it would be easy to think he would become a great football manager, but the skills are completely different.
Absolutely.
Empowering and engaging people, whereas football's about what you can do with the ball at your feet. Completely different skill sets. And we've often talked about that. We promote experts to lead teams of other experts. And this is where, as I say, you can become too hands-on and then fall into micromanagement, or create that distance. And you just got to get that balance right. And one of the things that I would tell people is that when I got my first leadership position, I was really, really proud and honored, but we've got to stay humble.
Sure.
If you become too proud and then become arrogant, again, that's going to create a disconnect between you and the team. And one of the most important things I would say is, if you're promoted into a team where you were previously the leader, part of that team, there's going to be people in that team who applied for that job as well. And now they're going to be jealous of you getting that role. And you've got to find a way to be able to deal with that. Again, treat them with respect. Don't be arrogant. I am the boss. La 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 la. That's
we keep the little dance for the bloopers. I love it.
That's not going to work. So we've got to be humble. We've got to respect the other experts. We've got to outwork people. That would be my advice.
Yeah, so many traps to fall in, and I think a summary would help. So one of the traps you said is that you don't want, because you're so proud, to boast yourself about it.
Yeah.
You want to be humble. Another trap is that, especially if you're a youngster in the company, you don't want to micromanage because you think you have to control everything.
Yeah.
You don't want to create too much of a distance because you think that, okay, I'm not one of the guys anymore, and
That creates a
I have to create
disconnect.
that distance. Yeah. So that's some stuff to be careful about, for sure.
One of the things I would say as well is that for people who haven't made that step up into a leadership position and you want to become a leader, you want to be practicing and learning about leadership now, so that when you get put into a position, you've got the skills. And a lot of people, there's opportunities to lead where they might think, yeah, but I'm not getting paid to do that. Why should I do it? And the answer is because it's a great opportunity to be seen, get practice and experience. If you wanted to be a professional footballer that played for Belgium, in your case, you wouldn't wait until you were selected for the national team to learn how to play football.
Right, that makes sense.
You'd be out practicing and playing, so you've got to do that. And then when you've got that leadership position, do take the opportunity to learn. Go and put yourself on a course. Over 50% of people promoted into leadership positions have never had any leadership training. So 82% of the people are the wrong people, and 50%
so
of them
scary.
have never had any training. And then we wonder why people fail.
Yeah, that is scary numbers again.
Yeah.
So half of the people never get training, and 82%.
They don't get training before they become a leader or earlier.
Yeah.
I'd been in a leadership position for 2 years when I got my first leadership training. And actually that first leadership training was project management training and didn't include a lot of leading within it. So, I hadn't received a lot of leadership guidance and direction and training at all when I did it. My leadership skills were what I'd learned playing sport. That's what I started with. Not a bad start, but not one I would recommend if you want to be successful.
So about sports, I used to be a swimmer, high level in Europe swimmer, and obviously it's quite the same. You don't start in the very deep waters before training small waters, right?
Yeah.
You have to first train with water up to there, and then move out to the deep waters. And you don't just jump in the swimming pool. You just learn first to get acquainted to water.
Yeah, but sadly, there are people that do get thrown into the deep end. When I led my first project, it was something I wanted to do, but I wasn't thinking about, by the end of this quarter, I'll be the leader. And what happened was the project manager got pregnant and she took maternity leave, and they needed to step in and take over immediately. Right. And again, because I was the expert on the system, I was immediately the candidate chosen to go and do that. So I wasn't exhibiting leadership skills. I was exhibiting expertise in the system. I didn't get any training, and then I was just left to sink or swim with a major implementation 6 months later. And if you do get promoted, it would be good to ask the people that have promoted you, what support am I going to get?
Yeah.
Because I've never done this before. I haven't had any training. Happy to do it. What support am I going to get? And make sure you've got resources available to you so that when you struggle. Another thing I would suggest for anybody moving into a leadership for the first time, one of the greatest resources you can get, probably more important than training for that first leader, although that training is good, would be find yourself a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Because the training will give you things that you can try to do. A mentor might be able to give you practical advice that will fix something right now.
Now, when you need
Yeah,
them.
yeah. So yeah, get yourself a mentor.
Yeah.
And find somebody that you respect, and set up bi-weekly, monthly meetings with them, and somebody that you can trust to talk about the problems that you've got, just as a sounding board. You might not go with their advice, but sometimes it's good to get your own thoughts played back to you. Because quite often I've got this brilliant idea, we're going to do blah, 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 blah. And then somebody will say, sorry, you're going to do blah, 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 blah. And you hear that and you think, yeah, that's crazy. But it didn't sound crazy.
You have to say it out loud, and I agree.
You need
But
somebody else
we'll
to
talk more
mention.
about mentors, because this is such an important topic, at least in my career and in my ways of working. I love to be surrounded by mentors, plural, because I like to be challenged and get their opinion, and I really respect their expertise. So we'll talk about that longer in the next episode. But definitely, that's a great advice for starting leaders.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. And I would tell people, not only go and study leadership before you get into that position, but take any leadership opportunity. If it's a captain of the swimming team, if it's leading your church bazaar, if it's charity, if it's football, whatever the opportunity is, because your leadership is all about dealing with people.
Yeah.
And any practice that you get will benefit you no end. Absolutely no end.
Practice, people.
Yeah, practice
makes perfection, right?
And the other thing I would say as well is that if you make a mistake, admit it, apologize, move on. Don't dwell on it. Just admit it, apologize, and move on.
Yeah. That's a good advice. Not the easy one, but a good advice, definitely.
Oh God, no.
I mean, moving on. I'm a huge overthinker, and we'll talk about that. I'm an overthinker.
Yeah.
So moving on to me is quite high. I can admit my mistakes, but they kind of stay with me.
Well, the challenge is that I've just been promoted into a leadership position, and 2 weeks in, I've made a mistake. This is a worst case scenario, and I've got two options. I can try and cover it up, or I can admit it, and maybe people will think it's the wrong person. But actually, people, if you admit the mistake and then admit it, accept it, and then address it, then people will respect and appreciate that. If you try and hide it or blame somebody else, now you're on the slippery slope to ex-leader.
And that's lacking clarity, transparency, and getting close to lying to your team, and that's the worst you can do.
And I like that alliteration. Admit it, accept it, address it. 3 A's. If you've got a problem, just take that approach, and you'll be good to go.
Excellent. We'll leave you guys with the 3 A's: admit, accept, and freaking move on, right?
And not address it.
Address it.
Yeah. Admit it, accept it, address it.
All right. Thank you, Gordon, for great tips today. I'll see you very soon, and we'll talk more about mentors and some of the ways to make people not good leaders, but great, and maybe the greatest leaders.
Absolutely. So thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, please share it, comment, message us. We'd love to hear from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.